This is Super Unnecessary, #1 podcast in the world. Thank you.
All right, here we go. Let's kick it off.
Yep.
Always a pleasure having chats with you. The man, Eugene. We all miss you here back home. So let's just get right into it. And we want to get your insight on this past weekend's fights in Vegas with Dan Hooker and Dustin Poirier headlining. First of all, I just wanted to ask how you felt the atmosphere was like at the Apex Center with no crowd, because you're so used to being in an arena with thousands of people yelling and screaming, but now it was just complete silence. So how did you feel that? What was the feeling and the mood like?
Yeah, there's a massive difference. I mean, I think I've been in the normal environment with all the crowd too many times, so I didn't particularly like it. It didn't feel right to me, but I think that's just a matter of that I'm so used to to it being the exact polar opposite. But yeah, in terms of like the quality of the fights or the cornering or the judging or refereeing, it was all worked pretty much as it would usually. So the only thing it really affected was like the feel, like the atmosphere, the ambience. That was definitely, I found that strange, and I probably would prefer it the other way if I ever had a choice.
Did you guys have to come up with like some code words or something for cornering? Because you were in such close proximity, to the other corner?
Yeah, I mean, you probably wouldn't be able to hear through the broadcast, but we used Maori numbers.
Oh.
So we were using, we were speaking to them all just through the numbers. Like the Maori numbers, the Māori numbers are, I mean, you learn those as a kid. Like every New Zealand kid learns those. So we thought we had a pretty good grasp. The problem is none of us have been kids for a very long time. So we did. It did take a while to like remember those numbers and get used to saying them again, and then putting them together. It took a bit of getting used to, but yeah, that was the only real code words we used. We just changed the numbers to the local language.
Did you come up with that plan beforehand, or was it sort of something you like did on the fly?
No, we did it at the start of the week, so we practiced with it. To be honest, it doesn't take long, like the way we do pads where everything's responsive. A lot of the stuff is responsive to the numbers. It doesn't take long. It didn't take long at all to get used to that. So that was just, I mean, it's just nice to be able to, in a venue that's silent, being able to like call your basic punches and your basic moves. It's just nice for them not to be able to know it.
Yeah.
Especially a 1, 2, and a 3. That's universal all over the world. 1's a jab, 2's a rear cross, and 3's a left hook. When you start getting beyond that, 4, 5, 6, 7, every gym has so many different numbers beyond that. So that doesn't really matter. But yeah, those first 3 numbers are pretty critical. So it was a small advantage, but it helped.
That's very cool. So let's talk about the fight. Give us your breakdown of how it went.
What do you guys think of the fight? You guys enjoy it?
Epic. It was crazy. I was freaking out the whole time. I was just like, oh my gosh.
It was such a good back and forth, and Matt and I watched it twice.
Yeah. We'll keep watching it. Yeah, it was amazing. Like, I think I even forgot there was no crowd because I was just like yelling. I was like on the edge of my seat the whole time, and then it was so more than I think a lot of people expected. Did it meet more than your expectations?
Well, it didn't really meet my expectations because my expectations were to win, so it fell short of that. But I think from what I can feel, I think people's reaction, and just ignoring you three for a moment because you guys are a little bit more emotionally invested because obviously you're a bit closer to Dan than your average person. I think a lot of people reacted in the same way you did that didn't have the same emotional investment, which is good, right? Because, I mean, especially if you lose, if you can, in the loss, at least you can gain something by knowing that a lot of people enjoyed this fight and a lot of people tuned in and a lot of people are talking about it. Once you're a UFC athlete, it's all about your profile. So it helped his profile. So he gained something out of it, even though it was a loss. Look, I think, the takeaways from that fight are obviously the first 2 rounds. And, the the first round especially, and then the second round, was our game plan working exactly the way we wanted it to work. The other thing is round 1 and 2, for the most part, worked how we wanted to work. That's how we predicted the fight would go. And then from round 3, 4, and 5 wasn't obviously part of our game plan. But you have to give credit to Dustin for that. And I mean, I don't want to diverge from this, but there's a bigger rounds 3, 4, and 5. There's a bigger story about this fight that people might not be aware of, and the bigger story behind rounds 3, 4, and 5 is got to do with how our country dealt with COVID-19 and how the United States dealt with it. And it's funny because people are going to be like, well, how does that relate to the fight? But look, how it relates is this. Our game plan had to reflect the way that our country dealt with COVID-19. And what I mean is we needed to slow the fight down. We needed to slow the fight down to a pace that more closely reflected our training and the quality of training we were able to get in and the amount of training we were able to get in. One thing I'm not going to do is sit here. One pet peeve of mine is when you get all the fighters, and many trainers do it, they get up and they say, hey, look, I don't want to provide excuses. And then the next thing they do, the next sentence, they start providing excuses. It's ridiculous.
Right.
Like, don't provide excuses. Look, we knew the circumstances that we're taking the fight under. You don't use it as an excuse. You make a plan. When you make your plan, you have to fully understand the circumstances that you're under, and your plan has to reflect that. Basically, we thought we had a plan that could slow the fight down, and then as you saw the story of the fight unfolding, we weren't able to slow the fight down to a pace that we could maintain. And credit has to go to Dustin for that, and that's where our plan failed. You don't want to put the blame on the plan. You don't want to put it solely on the plan. You don't want to put it solely on the execution. You just have to say that we had a plan to slow the fight down, and that plan wasn't able to come to fruition. All credit to Dustin. He and the coaching team, and they did a superb job. They were able to speed up that fight into a pace that we weren't able to stay competitive with, and then they won the fight fair and square, and they deserve all the credit in the world for that.
Yeah, I was wondering about how quarantine may have affected, because I know, the volume of training that everybody goes through before fighting, since that's kind of compromised. Like, I feel that Dan is much more skilled than Dustin. And I was wondering, like, the way he seemed in rounds 1 and 2, it looked like he was going to put him away. And I was wondering if was he thinking, maybe I can knock him out, and then Dustin just proved to be more durable than initially suspected?
There was a part, I think it was at the end of round 2, where Dan definitely, when Dan threw a flurry, it was like it must have been 8 shots or something in a row. Fighters don't do that unless Dan would never ordinarily just throw an 8-punch combination and chase someone up against a cage. Like, people have to understand that. He had a feeling, or he got a sign, or he took a read that Dustin was hurt, and he was like, I'm gonna go for something here. I'm gonna expend a lot of energy trying to get this because I believe I've got something. And he did. And he did have something. We found out after the fight from talking to their team. He said that, that he did have Dustin in trouble. If that round had gone a little bit longer, then this fight could have a different outcome. So Dan was right to follow his instinct in that regard. But back to what you said, Marissa, he did go for a finish there, and Dustin was able to weather it. Again, all credit to his toughness and his, the amount of how fit he was and how he was able to recover. He has to get full credit for that, definitely. But
yeah, that was insane.
Yeah, and a big part of our plan really required. It required Dan to be incentivize Dustin to not be as aggressive as he usually is, because one thing we had to do is, if you look at Dustin's fights against Justin Gaethje, Max Holloway, and to a certain extent Khabib, but his output, like the amount of offense that he does, is like through the roof. He throws a lot of attacks. He throws a lot of offense. So much so that if you look at it statistically, if you don't lower that, you know it's not going to be good for first of all for the outcome of the fight, and then secondly for your health.
That fight still topped the striking. It actually is the highest striking fight. So
that's what I mean. Like, but Dustin's fights are statistically really high when it comes to his output, and one thing that's blatantly obvious with those statistics is you have to find a way to lower that output. Otherwise, the result's not going to go your way. And the other thing is you're not going to end up that healthy after that fight. So a big part of our plan was to, first of all, use our physical advantages. That's always like a big part. It's always something we're trying to do. If we have any physical advantages, like it's just your obligation to take advantage of those as a coach. But then a big part of our plan was to slow that fight down to a pace that we thought we could keep, because we knew that if the fight moved at a pace where Dan fatigued too much, we just knew it wouldn't be good for us. The questionable part of our plan was to slow the fight down the way we wanted to slow the fight down. You've got to be very disciplined and very sharp. You've got to be and by sharp I mean you've got to be very accurate, very fast. And as we all know, like as you fatigue, as you get tired, some of those are two of the key things that sometimes start to wane, like your accuracy and your sharpness. So as Dan got more tired, he wasn't able to incentivize or disincentivize Dustin being aggressive because of that fatigue factor and the shots that we were looking at to discourage him to come forward, and they just weren't sharp because of the fatigue, and we therefore weren't able to slow the fight down the way we wanted to, and we had a higher pace fight than we were comfortable with. And if you look back at it now, then it was too high a pace for Dan to stick with the strategy that we wanted to enforce on him.
Do you think that the outcome of the fight may have panned out differently if Dan was able to maintain the range that he had in rounds 1 and 2?
Yes. Look, we had some particular shots that were designed to discourage Dustin, and you've got to understand that that's like, Dustin did get hit with some of these shots, and it didn't discourage him. It didn't discourage him at all. Like he came through some of those shots. He wore some of those shots, and what we were basically wanting is, the space where two fighters are posturing with each other, and they're kind of figuring out what to do. They're kind of posturing, and they're moving their head, and they're feinting, and they're giving each other different looks. We wanted more extended periods of that. So we wanted Dustin to think more about what he did, and just the accumulative effect of like hesitating and taking longer to make a decision. The accumulative effect would be a slower fight. That's what we wanted. We landed some of the shots we wanted when he was coming in, but it didn't discourage him. But what we really wanted is what we knew, that because fighters are tough, we knew that it would take more than one or two shots to discourage him. What we really wanted was an accumulative effect. So we wanted to land several of those. We knew that he wouldn't be discouraged by just a handful landing. We needed him to pay a price more often when he came forward. So at a higher frequency, then he would be more discouraged, and then would have more of that time where they're just standing there posturing, and then the fight slowed down, and then we've got a fight closer to a pace that we felt that we could have hung with. So we had to change a few things on the fly, like just especially when it came to into that third round, they're just like their reaction speed had gone. Dan's sense of distance had dissipated. The speed of his attack was like had substantially slowed down. Yeah, you could just visibly see that the pace of the fight that Dustin was getting to him was getting to him. In the third round, we still had a chance to implement big parts of that game plan, but just as that round got further and further through it, I could see that the fatigue was getting worse and worse. By the fourth and fifth round, the fatigue was really a factor, and there we really had to like throw some audibles in there, like really change the game plan substantially.
We did see that Dustin was good at coming forward, but he's also shown in other fights to be like really good at depth over punching and like switch hitting. But we didn't see a lot of that in this fight. So I was wondering if like Dan did something to stop Dustin from using that preferred method of attack that we've seen before.
Yeah, I mean, so the go-to attack when Dustin is having, especially when he's having trouble reaching the person, is to step over. So like. And it happens with statistically, there's a pattern there. And so that's something that you can make a plan for. So we definitely wanted Dan to stay long and Dustin to reach him. And then Dustin would have to start using these alternative methods of bridging the gap. Stepping over with the left hand was one of them. We had several plans for when that happened to help discourage that. He did that more and more. Early in the fight, you can see that we were defending that really well, either by moving, occasionally we countered, but as the fight wore on, again, Dustin's pace was too high and we started to fatigue at too fast a rate and we weren't able to deal with that as well as we could, but we definitely had a plan for that step over. Yeah, which is a really good way to bridge the gap when you can't reach someone, right? As long as you know how to do it correctly. And Dustin's like, that's one of his go-tos. It has been for a while.
Did Dustin do anything that you weren't expecting?
Nah, I mean, Dustin, they had a good plan. I could, like that their plan evolved in front of me. Like I could see it happening. I could see what they were doing the whole time, straight away. No, he followed the same pattern, but I mean, we didn't do anything extraordinarily as well. So like, he didn't do anything particularly different. I don't think we did either. It's more the application. Like you're doing the same moves, but it's the application, it's the strategy, it's how you're applying it. That's what the key is. So you never really see like. At the top level, you don't see Israel or Dan or Dustin fight, and then the next fight they're doing some spectacular move that's really, really different. The key difference will be in the way that they're applying what they're already pretty good at, and those things are more subtle. They're harder to see. He didn't really come up with anything. Like I said, I was happy with the first round, second round. I thought the things that we put in place to deal with, some of the way he blocks with the cross, I thought we did really well with that. I thought he gave us that outside foot position. We were able to turn him, and he had difficulty adjusting to us, like turning him. We used the right side of our body like really well. What you want to do with the right side of your body when you're like open stance versus open stance is you want to really make it very difficult for them to read what particular weapon on the right side of your body is being used, whether it be knee, right punch, basically anything on the right side. I thought we were doing that pretty good. Yeah, it's just like I said, like ultimately our plan to disincentivize Dustin being so aggressive and putting that high pace on us. We just weren't sharp enough to execute that as the fight went on, so we had to like change our plan a little bit. You guys want to know how we changed our plan?
Yeah.
No, because you were just about to ask that, Marissa. I read it on your face. I was like, Marissa's just about to ask me how we changed our plan. And I was like, oh. No, like the basic thing we did was like we closed it up, right? That's when you saw Dan like going into the clinch more and the old like you're either really far out or you're like really close. Actually, if you think about it, both those distances are just as safe as each other. You're far away where they can't hit you, or you're so close where they can't hit you. And that kind of like, that was the audible that we kind of threw in there. And part of that was we were always trying to win the fight, but there was a little bit of preservation in that as well. Like in the middle distance, Dustin was just sharper. he was just not as fatigued as Dan. And so he was a little sharper in those middle distances. So although we wanted Dan to like have a go at the middle distance, we wanted him to take a step forward and close that up, whether it be through the clinch or through a takedown. We wanted to close that up completely. So that was the main adjustment we made. You know, the third round was a good one. I can't help but think that, I mean, we held. There was stand up. There was a period of stand up in that round, and there was a period of groundwork where Dan was on top. The period of groundwork lasted longer than the stand up. So if you go by the way that MMA's been judged traditionally, and even recently, and you know, like a month ago or something, top person, regardless of whatever they're throwing up, bottom person, regardless of whatever they're throwing up, is probably losing in the judge's eyes. I really thought that if Dan could hold him down for the rest of the round, then that round might have swung our way, just because of top, just positionally we were on top. Dustin was throwing stuff up, but if you look at the way that judging has been, you know, has traditionally gone, it doesn't matter what you're throwing up. Judges have always given top position the onus. What happened was Dustin scrambled in the last 40 seconds and got to his feet, and there was about 20 or 30 seconds left. And that last 20 or 30 seconds, he probably won, and that probably won the crucial third round. That last 40 seconds probably won Dustin that round, and then therefore the fight, because as we know, it was 2-2. At the end, I was like, it's definitely 2-2. We won the first two, they won the last one. I said that third one is the tricky one, because we had a lot of top control position. We didn't do much damage from top, but it doesn't matter. That's not how judges have done it. There's an argument, and again, it's all hearsay, that if we had been able to hold Dustin down for that extra 40 seconds where he got up, and he did well when he got up, that we might have scraped that round in the judges' eyes. Definitely, if you look at those judges and the past trends, we might have swung that third round by a whisker. So, you know, just little things like that. But I mean, again, it's all speculation. It's all hearsay. So
was it at the end of that third round where you decided to change that game plan up and bring the range closer?
Yeah. I asked Dan to do a little bit less in the middle distance. Like I said, anything in the middle distance at that point was favouring Dustin. He was just fitter, man. He was basically he's just fitter. He just had a bigger gas tank for this fight. So I asked him just to take a step forward, clinch up, go for a takedown, basically close it up to as tight as he can possibly get it. That was our main adjustment. And it had different degrees of success. You guys understand, like, that minute, you have to keep things very simple in that minute. You have to keep things very simple at that minute. I've never seen Dan more tired between rounds in that fight. That is by far the most fatigued I've ever seen him. And it wasn't the time to have some sort of, you know, long articulate strategy and stick that on his face. It was time to keep things very simple. Take a step back, take a step forward, and that was basically all I really instructed him to do.
Dan had a lot of success with kicking that lead leg. So if he continued to do that, do you think anything else would have panned out differently?
Yep. I mean, again, it's all hearsay, right? Like, I don't know, but if you're asking me if I think, then definitely. Like, I definitely look. You know, boxing 101 or kickboxing 101, more like it. When you have a good guy with a good lead jab, the thing about a good jab is that it leaves you on your front foot for an extended amount of time, you know, while you're practicing that jab. And a good strategy to take away a jab is a good low kick. Dustin has a pretty good jab. We had several strategies in place to take the jab away from him. The primary one being the leg kick. And it wasn't necessarily to the calf, it was even to the thigh. It doesn't matter. It's just that every time he placed that lead leg for that jab, the plan was just to kick it. Knowing that Dan had a reach advantage, we knew that if we could get a sharp kick off and still pull our head back and turn our shoulder, we could still probably escape any counter, you know, because sometimes when they know you're leg kicking, they just take the leg kick and fire back. But we thought that we could take away the jab by hitting the leg kick. What actually happened with the leg kick, why that dissipated is Dan's foot. He busted up his foot. Like, his foot was like a watermelon after the fight. He did that maybe during the third round or during the second round. His foot was just massive. It was too hurt to keep kicking, so we had to kind of abandon that strategy, which was a bit of a bugger. Again, that's, you know, that full credit to Dustin. Like, one of those kicks was off target or Dustin checked. I think Dan might have said he hit an elbow. So again, if you don't hit an elbow, I exit. Dustin put the elbow there for us and we hit it. So, but when Dan circled and jabbed and had his lead hand up, it was very hard for Dustin to land his jab. So we had other strategies in play to take away his jab, and especially in that first and second round, they were working to a T. When two guys who aren't the same reach try to jab each other at the same time, only one of them wins, and it's always the guy with the longer reach. And that was what essentially was happening for the first two rounds. So it was the leg kick that was taking away Dustin's jab, and it was the fact that when Dustin tried to jab with us, he wasn't able to be successful because he's 2 or 3 inches short of what Dan, because that was the reach advantage.
I think it's really cool how you started off talking about the strategy and bringing it back to the idea of how New Zealand dealt with the whole pandemic. That's really actually brilliant, and only someone like you would do that. I just wanted to talk about, like, we all know the sacrifice you put in, and I haven't known you for very long, but everyone else at the gym talks so highly of all the time, blood, sweat, and tears that you put into this. So I just wanted to talk about Dan being the first overseas UFC fighter, and then now you have to go to Abu Dhabi to corner Alex, and you'll come back and do 2 weeks quarantine. How do you do it, and why do you do it?
Yeah, those are good questions. The decision to do this was not one that I took lightly. If I be honest, I was going up and down. I was going yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, like especially at the start when all of this first came up. And my original thought was that I wouldn't go and that I would just send other people to corner. But then I came around. How I reasoned it in my head was that the other people that were cornering, they wouldn't have been strangers. They would have been my close friends as well. So to not go because I felt that I was putting myself in danger, but then be willing to put them in danger by saying, oh, you go ahead. That definitely didn't sit right with me, because it was like, I've got to be willing to take the same risk as I'm willing to send people into the same environment. So I was like, well, I can't do that. So I dismissed that like early on. And then it just came down to a lot of my decision at the end of the day, honestly, just came down to Dan and being there for Dan. I'm pretty close to Dan. I'm pretty close to his family. I'm pretty close to his story, his life since he came, since me and his life got intertwined. We're very close in that respects. And that's what a lot of my decision came down to. And I just felt like I felt like taking those things into consideration to give Dan the best chance of being successful, making money from this fight for his family. That was what I based my decision on. And then with Andre and Mike, those guys have family and stuff too. So I let them know what I thought the risks were, and I let them make their own decision. I didn't end up pressuring them, which I thought I might be doing. For some reason, I thought I'd be pressuring people to come with Dan, but I didn't have to. I just let them know what I thought the risks were, and let them know what I obviously thought the rewards were, and then let them make a decision on their own. And then they decided that they wanted to be here. So, of course, I was happy about that. And then our team kind of we carried on like we usually do, minus our usual cornerman that we also had there, which was Tristram, but he couldn't be with us because he had some recent back surgery. So, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty happy with the way things are. Like, I'm in my hotel and I'm just staying in my hotel. Like, we have to understand that over here is very different. I've only been out once, and that was to grab some shopping because we got full kitchen facilities, so I had to do that to eat. But that was scary. Like, they put it this way, at the same point that this country is now, basically, we were all stuck in our houses and couldn't go anywhere. Well, they're not doing any of that. They have active cases in the community, but they're just carrying on, from what I can see, as per normal. People like brushing past me in the supermarket and people touching everything. And it's like, and I might be, an American will hear this and will think I'm over exaggerating, but they have to understand the environment that I've come from back in New Zealand, where we locked down in our houses and only one person in each household could go to the shopping centre. I got stopped by the police 2 times. I went to get some shopping and I had to prove that I was shopping by showing them my shopping. And we've been on 0 cases for a month I've come from. So to come into here is another thing I probably shouldn't say, but I just strolled through the airport. Not a single person in the airport looked at my passport.
Custom?
I put my passport on the table, and then they just went like that, and I just walked through. I just grabbed my passport again. They didn't open it or nothing. Like, there's no one coming here. Like, if you're lunatic enough to come here, then they're like, well, mate, you go straight through, mate. Like, it's like, it's kind of like she was going like, go ahead, mate. You roll the dice, brother. Go through. Roll the dice.
Oh man,
Like, it was the strangest. It's just strange over here, and there's definitely big risks
Mhm.
coming from New Zealand, it's very different. So I'm playing it safe.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to dial in Dan?
Okay, wait. I need to ask a question first because I want to get your input on this, Eugene, because I feel like it'll be really good. The whole fight with Dan and Dustin was epic, and even during the fight and after, on social media, everyone was just talking about how it's just a fight of the year contender. But next to that, second in line would be everyone's talking about Mike Perry's girlfriend cornering him. What are your thoughts on that?
He's a legend. She's a legend too. And actually, I said to the guys, I think it was after the fight, when we got back to the hotel, because we were assigned 4 cornermen and we only had 3. But had I known, I didn't know about Mike Perry's girlfriend and all that kind of stuff till I got here. And had I known that we could have filled our 4th cornerman spot up with Mike Perry's girlfriend, then I 100% would have. But the problem was, because we were the fight after, so she could have just quickly come back and chucked on a Dan Hooker uniform and jumped in with us.
Hilarious.
And but look, Mike Perry, he's a special human. You know, he's a free thinker. He does what he wants. Will I advise that? Would I ever advise that? No, I would never advise that. But I mean, I'm not Mike Perry. We're allowed to have different opinions on that, and he's entitled to his opinion. And like I said to the boys, we were watching all the we sat after Dan's fight. We sat in the hotel and ate Wendy's, and we watched Mike Perry talking about. We watched Mike Perry talking about his missus, and and at the end of the day, he won. All the proof is in the pudding. Like, if he decided that he's going to do that again, you can't argue with him because he was successful. So, and that's all the evidential proof you need. So you can't argue. If he does it again, no one can argue with him. If he loses the next one, then you've got some evidence that you should say this probably isn't a good idea. But at the moment, can't fault him for it.
At
but
the
I
moment,
think
he's a legend.
He's smart enough. I think he said he's going to try and get a cornerman. So he's.
Oh yeah. He's looking for a team. You know, you reckon like he'd fit in at CKB?
I'm gonna, like nothing against Mike Perry, but probably say he's probably too much of a free thinker, too much of an individual for us. He's a special person. He probably wouldn't gel with our team.
Mate, I couldn't believe that he was the same age as the dude he fought, because like he looks slightly older. Like he's only 28, man. I'm like far out.
Yeah, but he's had a special life. He's had a hard life. He's had a lot of fights. He's been punched in the head a lot. That doesn't help your age, does it?
Street fights, yeah, true.
Hi,
There's
Dan.
the Hooker. Now, Hooker was saying how funny it would be to be quarantined in Ellerslie, right next to where he lives. And then now I heard he's in Ellerslie.
Oh, I know. I don't know. I feel like he's going to break out. All I can see is.
You can see me.
Yeah.
We can't see your eyes, brother, but we can see your face. We can't see any pupils. They're all covered up. Yeah, now we can see.
They're there somewhere.
The girls are going to ask you some questions.
Questions? The hard-hitting stuff?
Yeah. Is Isabella going to corner you?
Nice segue.
Yeah.
I already told the boys. They're out. I'm taking the missus next time.
You know what? At the end of the day, 3 of the most experienced cornermen in the country, we weren't able to get the win. So you might as well try something different. Give Isabella a go.
Mike Perry trick, right? What's up, girls?
How are
What's
you
the story?
First of all, how are you doing? How are you feeling? How's the leg? How's the face?
$1 million.
$1 million. Awesome.
It's all just to be honest, it's all just superficial. It all just looks bad, but it doesn't even feel bad. I saw that it was the most significant strikes in a lightweight fight ever.
Yeah, I heard people were saying that round 2 was like the best round in like MMA history.
Yeah.
I haven't watched it yet.
You haven't watched
I only
it?
I only saw round 3, 4, and 5. So I saw the shit one.
It's been called an instant classic.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I'll have to watch it then. I'll have to give it a watch.
If people think that as a coach I'm meant to be proud of those statistics, it's not particularly. I think those are statistics that are more for the fighter.
Well,
As a coach, I don't want to be part of.
I'm not even proud of that.
I don't want to be part of.
What happens when you?
Yeah, I don't want to be part of any
That's
significant
just
strike.
what happens when you lose your fucking temper. That's what happens.
But even fight of the year, like as much as it's great to get fight of the year because you get money, I always cringe at fight of the year because, and not all the time, but most of the time, fight of the year means your fighter's been through an absolute war and probably been hit just as much as I've hit the other guy, which is like, as a coach, it's like, nah, it's not something I want to be a part of. But yeah, it happens.
So then I have a question, I guess, kind of related to that because, like, this fight was crazy, and the last fight that you had with Felder, that was crazy. So do you think you'll fight again this year?
Yeah, I'd like to fight again.
I think there's there's time enough there for a good recovery and another fight. I think
Nice.
is basically, yeah.
You like staying busy.
I don't think it was that bad. I don't think it was. I like to watch it.
It was
The
crazy.
Felder fight felt worse. Like my body felt worse than my body feels now.
What was it like with the no crowd? Like, how was that compared to your Auckland fight?
Like a lot less. It's just a lot less adrenaline. To be honest, like it was a lot more. It was a lot more relaxed. I prefer a crowd. If I'm being honest, I prefer the crowd. You can draw a lot of adrenaline from the crowd, and it makes you focus. When the crowd's screaming and there's so much outside stuff going on, and when you block that out and really just zone in on focusing on the fight, it really makes you kind of lock in. But that was that was weird because you spend your whole career fighting with hundreds of people, thousands of people, and then that's the first time I've ever fought with just a handful of people.
Is it distracting, like, with the commentators right there?
I wouldn't say it was distracting so much. Like me and Dustin were talking to each other, and he's talking to his corner, I'm talking to my corner, he's talking to the commentator. Like it was, I don't know. Just the crowd blocks a lot of that stuff out, and that's kind of what I mean by focus. Like if there was a crowd there, like I wouldn't even have heard Dustin really talking to his corner or responding to his corner. Like I would be more focused on me, my corner, and like what I'm trying to do, as opposed to conversations he's having with people.
Yeah.
Eugene was saying that he was calling numbers out in Maori. How did that work out for you?
It will be a good plan. I think it's a good plan.
Yeah.
I don't know if he heard.
It'll be good
I don't know if he heard me or not, but yeah, we definitely have to do something for the 1, 2, 3. As you girls can imagine, like when you're in a silent place like that, and I yell out 1, 2, or just, and most of the time when you're yelling out something, the instructions are really basic anyway. You can't yell out something really complicated, but you just want to get something across that's really basic. 1, 2, 3, it's the universal, like jab, rear cross, left hook. So to change at least those 3 numbers will definitely help, because then imagine if I go 1, 1, Dustin clearly hears that.
Yeah.
What's coming next? 1, 1. Like I think we're obligated to change it.
But now that everyone knows that, do you have to pick a different language?
Nah,
Hawaiian. You can do Hawaiian.
I don't know. Yeah, all the Pacific Island numbers basically are the same.
Yeah, true. Dan, is it true that your walkout song, that was the previous walkout song for Dustin?
Yeah, it was. I've been listening to Kevin Gates for years, so I don't know. It's just a song, like your walkout song is just something. It's just something that gets you going. It's not like I picked it to piss him off or picked it to like get at him or anything like that. It's just picked it because it's a song. It's a song that I liked. It's a song that was motivating me at the time, and that's it. It's your one opportunity. You can play whatever you want. That's like your one opportunity, and so it's a song that I wanted to go with.
What are your plans for 2 weeks in quarantine?
I'm actually quite jazzed with how this all played out. If I'm being honest, I've got no complaints at all. We got because you go through all the you go through everything just like normal. You just speak to someone and they take your temperature going through the airport. Then you go through customs, come out the door, and there was a guy at the door, and you just show him your pass. He goes, yep. Just jump on this bus here. It's going to be a 20-minute trip to the Novotel in Ellerslie. And I was just like, oh, thank goodness, because I live in Mount Wellington, 5 minutes from my house. I've already had Izzy down here, and because the Novotel in Ellerslie, we've got like a big car park and a big like park out front, and she just parked in the car park across the way, and she was standing 2 meters from me on the other side of a gate. So I've already had my daughter and wife come and visit me. So they're gonna come down. They're gonna come down every day, and it's So a lot of the other ones aren't like that. You have to book in for your time to go outside, and you're only allowed like 40 minutes or an hour per day recreation outside. But here, you can go out whenever you want. You can go out whenever you want, however you want. So she's coming tomorrow, and we're gonna have a nice little picnic. I'm quite stoked.
I was going to ask what's your favorite biscuit, because I was going to maybe like bake you some brownies or something.
Nah, people can't hand you stuff. You're allowed to buy stuff from the supermarket, but people can't give you stuff.
So it has to be in a package.
Do you order it?
You have to get it directly from you can order stuff. You can order like Uber Eats. You can order groceries from the supermarket, but they have to deliver it. Like you can't get your family to deliver it. I guess I think they're just worried about people getting like too drunk and stuff.
I thought you were going to say they're worried about like community transmission or something like that. Like they're worried about people getting too drunk.
So you haven't got a temperature or anything like all those COVID tests? They all come back pretty good?
We did 2 in the US, and they were all sweet. And we get tested here on day 3 and day 11.
Oh, sweet.
Oh yeah.
But my fucking nose is broken. I don't know how you're gonna get a bloody.
Hey.
I don't know how you're gonna shove something down there.
Do you have any good stories about Mike this trip?
At some stage, we do need to get a bronze statue commissioned of Golly and smack it in the middle of the Aotea Square and just put a plaque on it that this woman has lived with Mike Ango for more than a decade. and we need a Golly day where she gets commemorated, because he's a very difficult man to live with. Me, Dan Andre only had 5 days or so, and that's about all a human being can handle is 5 days of Mike Ango. Unless you're Golly.
We got here at the hotel, and we're all wearing like UFC shit. We all roll up at the same time, and they were like, "Are you traveling with anyone?" And I had Mike and Andre standing behind me, and I was like, "Nah, never seen those guys before." Because they were like, "Oh, we got you down for a double room. Are you traveling with anyone?" Nah.
Really? So they were trying to put people together? Stuff that?
Yeah, they had me down for a double room, but I was just like adamantly like, nah, don't know who those guys are. We're all wearing the same
I didn't want it.
They've got your shirt on, it says like Hooker, and you're just like, nah.
We got big UFC shirts on it. Nah. By myself.
I just want to say I think it's really sweet that so many people thought that your fight was amazing and just epic. So I feel like you won a lot of hearts.
Oh, he's frozen.
That was really nice. That was like my heartfelt thing to say.
Strategically frozen.
I guess. Well, I appreciate your effort, I guess. Like at the end of the day, it's a nice consolation prize.
The only consolation prize when you lose and you have a fight like that is that for these guys, for these professional athletes, especially UFC guys, your profile has a lot to do with your worth, and there's a little bit of consolation there that it was because of the way the fight went. It was a high profile fight. A lot of people looked at it, and that there's a little bit to gain there for Dan's profile. But when you lose, you lose. Anybody would trade that lift in your profile for a W. So, but it is a little bit of a consolation.
I do have 2 follow-up questions because you're talking about profile. I guess where does Dan go from here?
In terms of that, I think it was a pretty good fight.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, where does he go from here?
the way I've had it explained to me is Felder's below Hooker. Hooker shouldn't really fall below Felder. Dan pretty much stays at roundabouts the same position he's in. I mean, that's why the fight made a lot of sense if you're talking about rankings, is that Dan's still sitting basically where he was, looking at getting another big fight. What he might have to do, I think, is fight someone below him to maintain that position. I think they might press that on him. Yeah, Dan might have different thoughts on that, but I think that's basically the case.
Who would you like to fight, Dan?
I think there's two fights that make sense. Well, it just kind of depends how it all plays out. Like Dustin's already said that he doesn't want to fight until 2021, and the only fight that really makes sense for him is Tony Ferguson. So, like, there's best case scenario for me, and that's that Tony Ferguson wants to get back in action before the end of the year. And if, you know, I don't think I'd fall. Like, I don't think me losing in a fight like that to the number 3 ranked guy in the world makes me fall lower than a guy I just beat. I don't think that happens. I think that kind of would make not much sense at all. So I guess, like, that's best case scenario for me. Worst case scenario is I fight the guy who ranked lowest, Charles Oliveira. You know, he's got a lot of steam behind him. 7-fight finish streak or something like that.
How far is he? Is there no one is there no one between you and him?
There's me, then Felder at 6, then Oliveira at 7.
7? How many fights has he had at lightweight? 1, 2?
No, he's on a 7-fight win streak at lightweight.
No, he's not from featherweight, He's always been in lightweight.
He was featherweight, but like probably switched before I switched.
Shit, he took a long journey to get to 7, man.
They're all like finishers, but they haven't been like top-notch guys. He just kind of broke that high into the rankings because he beat Kevin Lee in his last fight.
Yeah, that's right. I remember.
Either of those fights is still a main event. Like Charles Oliveira's last fight was a main event. Tony's last fight was a main event. So either of those fights, a win there, like you're straight back in the mix.
I have another question, maybe not so related to this fight, but in general, you were talking about how a fighter's profile is important for their ability to get future fights. And then, so, you know, you hear about Conor McGregor's name thrown in the mix about a title fight. And I guess my question is, at what point does, like, merit trump marketability?
Well,
because I feel like there's other people way more deserving, right?
Yeah, well, at the point you're Conor McGregor. That's, yeah. At the point you make the company millions and millions of dollars. I mean, that's why he can skip over people in an organization that is in charge, in a company and an organization that are in charge of their own rankings. There's no independent body. It would never happen in a million years. He could be the richest man in the world, and he wouldn't be able to skip over anybody because it's all done on merit, on fighting merit. But UFC works a little bit differently, and economically, if you're a big earner, you can have whatever you want. You don't have to fight your way into any position. That's part of. If you're not Conor McGregor, that's part of the problem. But from what I understand, Khabib won't fight him for that exact reason, because he doesn't believe that Conor deserves the fight, because he hasn't done anything in the lightweight division to deserve it. So maybe he won't get the next title fight or something. But yeah, you have to be Conor McGregor. Everybody else has to just play the normal game.
No, I was just wondering, because you know how it's not like any other sport. It's more like sports entertainment. There's a definite entertainment component, but it's still a sport, you know, and I feel like the merit should stand for maybe a little more.
Yeah. I like it, Marissa. I need to get you in front of the big boss.
Yeah.
We discussed this. I'm unemployable, remember?
Dana.
Mate, I'm telling you, if we get the super unnecessary girls in front of the big boss, can make things happen.
We're away.
Yeah. Did Dana call you? Have you spoken to him?
Does he call you Dan or nah? That's just a special privilege that Kai and Israel get. I think Kai and Israel are Dana's golden boys in New Zealand. Do you get personal messages from Uncle Dana? No.
Nah. Oh, we asking me if he called me.
Yeah, you.
Nah,
you.
he didn't call me, bro. Nah, he didn't call me.
Nah, only Kai and Israel, they get messages from Dana.
Sean Shelby's my guy, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did he call you? Did Sean call you?
Nah, we're not like that.
He called me. He called me. I think he was flying. So he normally calls after Dan gets in a big war just to say thank you and how is he, and I just said he's great, mate. $1 million. Get us the next one. He's I mean, Sean respects Dan a lot, so he does good. He does good for us. Is that it, girls?
That's
That
all
us?
I have.
I think so. We look forward to getting a chat in with you and Joe after Alex's fight. While you're back in quarantine, while the two of you are back in quarantine.
Boy, there's a reason Uncle Joe is not on many interviews, and it's because Alex tries and blocks all of them because he doesn't feel Alex doesn't want his deepest, darkest secrets told on the international podcast.
Well, we'll get an exclusive.
Because Uncle Joe goes in. He don't give a damn. Uncle Joe goes in.
Nice.
Thank you, girls.
Thank you for talking
What's
to
that?
us. Not ESPN, not MMA junkie, not Bloody Albert, but
Number
super
one.
unnecessary.
This is super unnecessary. #1 podcast in the world. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, girls. See
Thanks.
ya.
Bye.